Border closure extends to 2020. Now, the Securities and Exchange Commission urges investors in the capital market to diversify their investment portfolio in order to mitigate risk as the Nigerian stock market lingers in the red region. Oil prices rise following trade talks between China and the U.S. The program is Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Amina Nujaim. Welcome to the program. The African Economic Congress has opened in Abuja with discussions targeted at building the desired economy on the continent. Benny Adams is at the Sheikh Musa Yaradua Center and has an update for Business Express.
In 2018, the African Export and Import Bank reported that 15% of international trade by African countries takes place within the African continent. This percentage compares unfavorably with other continents such as Europe with 67%, Asia with 58%, and North America 48%. Some factors that have been identified for this relatively low trade performance include tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers, such as poor infrastructure that stifles the movement of goods and services across the African continent. The creation of a single continental market for the free movement of goods and services within the continent is expected to address such economic concerns as we take bolder steps in exporting Nigeria to Africa and the rest of the world. With me is a former Central Bank Deputy Governor as well as a development economist to talk on some of these issues.
Economic theory has proven that when countries trade with each other based on their best competitive advantage, at the end of the day, it's a win-win for everyone. And particularly for the largest economy, it will have very good, positive, fallouts.
Africa today is experiencing a resurgent interest from countries around the world. And how do we benefit from this interest? The best way we can benefit from this interest is to unite our economies, explore our resources, and see how this relationship can also ignite a new industrialization for our continent.
In the next few days, the African Economic Congress will continue to discuss on issues of agriculture, energy, tax, as well as financing our economy. We'll bring you details as events unfold. It's over to you in the studio for the continuation of Business Express.
Thank you, Benny Adams. The Nigerian Customs Service, NCS, says there is no date yet for the reopening of borders that have been partially closed since August. This is in reaction to reports making rounds on the social media. The reports refer to a directive by President Muhammadu Buhari to the NCS setting January 31st, 2020 as the terminal date for border closure. The NCS Public Relations Officer Joseph Atta explained that the internal memo was only referring to the terminal date of the Joint Security Outfit. Swift response and insisted that the partial border closure would last till the achievement of its set objectives. Now, last week, Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, disclosed the approval of the Apex Bank to inject 19.8 billion naira into the cotton value chain in the country. This is equal to the border closure by President Muhammadu Buhari, which has just been extended. Let's take this look by the CBN governor.
The commitment that we have within these countries is that goods can come through your ports to Nigeria, but when they come, they're supposed to come in sealed containers, escorted to Nigeria for the Nigerian customs to open them and do their own inspection as well as charge duties. But that's not what is happening. They allow containers to be opened, and also they allow goods to be smuggled beyond the formal borders through several illegal routes. Now that we have committed to the AFCFTA, we have to ensure that the rules are obeyed. Otherwise, our local industries will be greatly affected. Our businesses have been suffering because of the activities of smugglers, but with the opening up, with the more opening up following our commitment to the AFCFTA, this will get worse unless we make sure now that everybody comes back to obey the rules as they are laid out.
Nigeria is a country that has its own policy, and we will have a responsibility to put in place policies that will help engender growth in our country. Policies that will help grow our own manufacturing and agricultural sector. And to that extent, we've heard since 2015, Mr. President saying that there is a need for us to eat what we grow and grow what we eat. And so Nigeria cannot allow a situation where, while the president of Nigeria says we must grow what we eat, or produce what we eat, or eat what we produce, that then another country allows this same policy to be undermined because they allow the smuggling of these same goods that Mr. President said we should produce. They allow this product to be smuggled through their borders into Nigeria. And I repeat, since 2015, the president, the government of Nigeria has been engaging these countries about the need for them to control the influx of some of these smuggled goods into Nigeria. But I can tell you, nothing happened.
Now, Binta Shaibu is the Chief Executive Officer and Head Designer Vintage Collect. She is a player in the cotton and textile garment industry. She's also a key follower of recent developments aimed at ensuring optimal performance of the sector as Nigeria insists on diversification. Binta, good to have you on Business Express today.
Thank you very much.
Okay. If you've been following our stories, the custom says there's no deadline until the set target. President Muhammadu Buhari has also says border closure extends to 2020. Now there's so much talk about rice. What areas of priority do you think should be focused on with attention shifted to rice? Does the cotton value chain have a place in all of this?
Yes, I think, I believe that the cotton value chain entirely from the cotton down to the garmenting has a very good place in it. With the border closure, records show that now the Nigerian custom is being able to generate revenue up to 5 billion naira daily in the ports. So I think this will be a welcome development for the entire cotton value chain in Nigeria. So.
Okay, I know you're sort of involved in activities with the Central Bank of Nigeria with this initiative of cotton value chain. Would you say funding would give it a jump start?
Definitely, funding would give it a jump start. While this has been in the works for a number of years, going through the ministries, it was not feasible because the ministries have to wait for budget, cash backing and all, while the CBN, being a major player in this, can actually fund projects like these without waiting for ministries' approval and all the rest. So this funding has been a major part of our problems. As a member of Nigerian Textile and Garment Manufacturers Association, I can attest to that.
Have you found a way around this challenge?
Well, we have found a way around it in a way that the cotton seedling has been improved from the cotton farmers, through the cotton farmers. They've been given the right fertilizer to farm the right cotton yield. The ginneries have been given a loan to clear their debt at single-digit interest. They've been provided with how to get resources for the cotton, and then so the textile and garment factories as well to come around all these challenges that they've been having fundamentally.
Now we are still talking about the initiative by CBN. What do you make of it, and how does it impact the industry?
Well, it impacts the industry because we have been on survival mode, I think, for a number of decades right now. Survival modes in terms of high overcost, influx of smuggled goods into the country, second-hand clothing for those of us in the garment tin. In the 80s and 70s and 80s, there were about 167 to 175 textile mills in the country, and now they're barely 24 to 25, working at a capacity of 1/3. Their normal capacity, and hugely in debt, and they were basically zero garmenting industries when all this economic crunch happened, and with a population of 180 million Nigerians, I don't see why we should keep on relying on smuggled goods, imported clothing and all, when our garment industries and textile could actually be funded and regulated.
Okay, now you've been in the marketplace for a couple of years and you've been a key player. What have you put in place or implemented to make the industry work for you and for you to move forward? Now, with these developments, do you see yourself doing anything different?
Yes, we see ourselves doing something different with the access to local market in terms of the uniform contracts that the president has given a mandate for, presented directive that all uniforms have to be manufactured, sourced and manufactured locally from the cotton, textiles and the garmenting. So that would fundamentally push these industries and companies to work back into the mode of 3 shifts a day, creating employment, generating income and actually creating more to the GDP than usual.
Talking about GDP, if you were to put a number to it, what figure do you see?
I would say 25% of the GDP. That's what we hope to get it back up to.
Is that the optimal, or that's just
well, you have
positive?
To start somewhere, and then we'll see where that goes with time.
Okay, talking about growing the GDP, business within the sub-region, let's say Africa, where is the cotton value chain?
Well, to be honest, it hasn't been good over the past couple of years because we haven't been competitive, because we are not even selling locally like we should due to smuggling. Like, for instance, in 2016, between July and September, there was actually smuggled textiles in the amount of about 25 billion naira, and that year annually generated about 1.3 trillion in terms of smuggled textiles alone. We're not talking about garments, we're not talking about other cotton value chain. So we haven't, because of our high overheads, because these smugglers do not pay taxes, they don't create employment and all, we haven't been able to compete very well in the African market, and that has been a major challenge for our industry.
Let me throw in the issue of diplomacy and security ties. Is that also a challenge?
It is. Anywhere there's a security problem, it creates a problem not just for our own industry, but for generally all kinds of businesses. And with improved security now, I'm sure everything is getting back to normal and improving on how to see how the future would be and progress.
Now, talking about the future, the fiscal and monetary authorities have taken their stand. What steps do you think should urgently be taken within the industries to see positive results?
I think it has already been taken. That's with the African cotton, and that's with the seedlings provided to the farmers in particular. Because right now, African cotton is discounted in the international global market because of what they call impurities when you're manufacturing this cotton into textiles.
Is this something that could be checked before it's even rejected?
Yes, definitely. All those processes have been put down in place so that we can have a global market for our own African cotton industry.
So with some of these challenges you've talked about rejection, is the African market ready?
we are almost ready. But you can't be ready unless you've put in the steps to be ready. And now we have put in the steps to actually be in the process. For example, when you talk about the textile and garment industry, Ethiopia in particular has taken that market, and they've created this huge textile and garment hub, and are trying to be the African giant in terms of that manufacturing. And don't forget, we have a population of more than 180 people, while China is producing 50% of the garments in the world and moving towards technology. We were not seizing that opportunity, but with this CBN intervention, we're taking steps towards creating that opportunity and jobs and everything towards capturing that market for the future of Africa.
Would you say investors like you are receiving the initiatives by the CBN, for example? How is it being received?
Absolutely. Like every industry in the cotton value chain has their peculiar needs and demands. As I mentioned earlier, the cotton would need the seedlings, the fertilizer, the ginneries will require their debts to be settled, and then loans. Same with the textile industry. For the garment industry, because most of the garment industries functioned and set up all by themselves without any government intervention, we are going to have access to working capital, which is a major funding problem in the Nigerian garment industry, to actually work towards this uniform ideology and idea of sourcing uniforms locally, from the military to the paramilitary to schools, and all produced locally, so that we can solve all that problem.
Now, in closing, within the short and long term, what do you see happening?
I see us greatly contributing to the GDP of Nigeria positively. Like I said, we'll start with 25% and see where that goes.
Long term?
Well, long term, we intend to create employment. That's a major factor. With employment, you solve a lot of security issues and poverty issues that we're facing in the country, which I believe is one of the main SDG problems. Factors to solve, decent jobs and an economic development. So that's where we're focusing now on, and that would create employment for the country.
Binta Shaibu, a key player in the cotton, textile and garment industry. It was, nice hearing your insight on these developments. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you too.
It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Now, oil prices jump after US-China trade talks tapped down fears of slow global growth. Let's see how commodities are faring in the local and global markets. Nigeria's immediate past budget and national planning minister Udo Udoma has bagged the highest honor by the Japanese government, the Order of the Rising Sun Gold and Silver Star, the first ever Nigerian to be so awarded. He joins a select few foreigners to be awarded, and his citation includes contribution towards strengthening bilateral relations and promoting friendship between Japan and Nigeria. The occasion Sunday is the 2019 Autumn Imperial Decoration by the Emperor of Japan, and a statement by the Japanese Embassy in Nigeria noted Udoma as a strong proponent of Japan's official development assistance ODA to Nigeria. Now let's see how the Naira is performing against major currencies. The Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) is advising investors in the capital market to diversify their investment portfolio in order to mitigate risk. The Acting Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Mary Uduk, stated this at a one-day enlightenment program for the Nigerian Army Ordnance School Ojo Cantonment in Lagos. The Commission says there were good opportunities to achieve decent returns on investment in the market, but investors must be smart to avoid some obvious mistakes which could lead to capital erosion through mixed bag of investment. She explained that an investment portfolio connotes a mixed bag of investment instruments such as shares and bonds, adding that investment in the mutual fund had continued to be a worthwhile investment in recent time. The Nigerian equities extend losing streak, with investors losing 26.98 billion naira last week. Muplang Dakop tells us more.
At the end of trade last week, 1.5 billion shares worth 16 billion naira in 15,544 deals were traded by investors on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. The NSE All-Share Index and market capitalization both depreciated by 0.21%. to close the week at 26,293.30 and 12.799 trillion naira. The financial services industry led the activity chart with 1.3 billion shares valued at 10 billion naira traded in 10,204 deals. The ICT industry followed with 59.862 million shares worth 3 billion naira. The third place was the conglomerates industry. A total of 1,830 units of exchange-traded products (ETPs) valued at 65,956 naira were traded in the week in 7 deals, as well as 7,465 units of federal government bonds valued at 8.1 million naira. All other indices finished higher with the exception of the NSE Main Board, NSE CG, NSE Banking, NSE AfriBank Value, NSE AfriDiv Yield, NSE Merry Growth, and the NSE Consumer Goods indices, which declined, while the NSE ASEM Index closed flat. 27 equities appreciated in price, 18 equities depreciated in price, while 121 equities remained unchanged.
Meanwhile, world equities market surged Friday after a stronger than expected U.S. employment report and surprise bounce in Chinese manufacturing. Muplang Dakok again has this.
Stocks across the globe traded higher Monday as renewed optimism over U.S.-China trade talks looked set to reignite a risk-on approach. European stocks advanced on renewed trade optimism. FTSE 100 was up 0.63%, DAX 0.88%, and CAC 40 also traded positive in early trade. In the U.S., Dow futures advanced 1.1% at 27,347.36, as the S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite also appreciated. Shares in Asia Pacific advanced on Monday afternoon in response to the news of progress in trade talks led by Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index, which climbed 1.65%, while Japan's Nikkei 225 was negative. Stocks in Africa also posted gains to end last week. South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40 closed 504.14. Most stocks on the continent also began trading northward Monday, except Ghana's JSE Composite Index.
And that's a wrap on this edition of Business Express. We would like to inform you that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on NTA's channel. You can also communicate with us on Twitter, and the handle is @NTA News Now. Don't forget the hashtag BizX. Business Express returns on Wednesday. Thank you for watching. I am Amina Nujaim.